Hello everybody, and welcome to another Train Sim World 2 news video. Today, I shall be having a look at the live stream that was done yesterday. Dovetail Games did a live stream regarding the German route, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce. Isn't it KÖLN-AACHEN or something like that? I think I got from Matt Pedleston and all the guys in there. So yeah, for now, if it isn't, then I'm sorry. But for now, I'm going to call it the KÖLN-AACHEN because I believe that's what they called it. So yeah, today I'm going to be having a look through my notes on the live stream and see what there is to discuss regarding the route. So, before we get going on the main news about the actual route itself, they had some general news about Train Sim World. Now, I've already done a video regarding the new release date for Train Sim World 2. Obviously, as you should all know by now, this is going to be the 20th of August that they're now going to be releasing the route. And the reason why they've done this is so that they can bring the Preserve Collection forward into Train Sim World 2, so that you can use the Preserve Collection in the Scenario Planner. Which, like I say, go and watch my whole video on it. I'm not going to stick on this for too long. But I think that's a really good move, and I can't wait to see them actually implement this and get the game out to us. I'm more than happy to wait until they've implemented that for us to get the new game. So, onto the KÖLN-AACHEN route. First question, naturally, was where will the route run? The route will run between Köln and Aachen. There's a couple of little bits extra that they've included. Apparently there's a bridge. I don't know which end it was. They just mentioned a bridge. So I'm sure if you are familiar with the route, you'll know it. But apparently there's a big bridge that's visible from the station. It's not you can't go over it because they've not made it that far, but it's visible. So it's there, which kind of makes me think, I wonder how good the modelling is on it. If it's going to be a distance object, did they actually model it properly? Or would they have cut corners and just done sort of a low resolution asset, which sort of just works because it's as good as it needs to be from a distance sort of thing. Only time will tell us on that one. Apparently there's no Aachen West Yard, but there is a depot somewhere along that bit which can be used. Apparently I think it sounds like there are a few other depots as well. There's a big yard somewhere as well. And apparently the depot usage is pretty limited, but there will be trains that come in and out of the depots in the mornings and evening at, on the service mode timetable. Some of the training tutorials will be taking place in the depot as well, as you'd expect. Obviously, on the Western, for example, you had Reading Train Care and you had Old Oak Common, which you could do trains in and out of and all that kind of stuff. East Coast Way, you've got a Lovers Walk at Brighton. So I'd imagine a similar thing will take place at the depots on the KÖLN-AACHEN route, where you'll have trains in the morning and the evening going in and out of the depot, and you can start a train from there. Next up, what period is the route? The period is in the current period, so it's sort of probably you'd get away with sort of between sort of 2019, 2020, 2018 maybe. Basically just anything sort of within the modern period. It's not particularly based on any time specific necessarily, but they've based it on the modern period. Next up, why did they choose this route? This route was particularly chosen because they wanted to do some high-speed stuff. Because obviously the fastest ever we've had is 125 mile an hour up the East Coast Way from London to Reading. And that's good, but the ICE can go faster, and they wanted to see if it was possible if they could actually do that. Apparently they did a lot of research in the ICE routes, and they found that there's a very long distance between, obviously, ICE stations, so they were hard to actually do. But they found that the KÖLN-AACHEN route was within about 70 kilometres, so it's roughly the same length of London to Reading. But it's the same distance, it was easy enough for them to make, and they can go up to 250 kilometres an hour. However, the ICE is apparently capable of doing about 320 kilometres, and the game will take it, just the route is limited to 250. They also chose that route because there's a nice mix of other trains and services. Apparently the high speed runs down sort of commuter lines for a lot of the run, so there's sort of 4-track running you've got, where 2 of the tracks are high speed and 2 are sort of local traffic. So that should be good to see a wide variety of different trains along the route. They also asked, is this going to be their only high-speed route? Of course it's not going to be their only high-speed route. They've spent the last year upgrading the core engine so that the game loads and unloads faster. Apparently there's a lot of material stuff, which I'll go into later, but basically there was a lot of big big items which took a long time to load and unload, and it wasn't pretty for high speed on Great Western. So they've basically optimised the game a bit, which, like I say, I'll go into in just a second. The reference material they've taken is actually not collected sort of in person. They've not actually taken research trips out to the route by the sound of things, which may make it suffer, but it also may not. Apparently they've used a lot of sort of photos and local knowledge and all that kind of stuff to try and get the route as good as they can. So I'm assuming they probably had cab ride videos and all that kind of stuff which they looked at, had a look what's what, and spoke to drivers and stuff about how it was. So, with regards to the optimization work I talked about slightly earlier, it sounds like the textures, they've not been changed a lot, but it sounds like some of the textures that were slightly larger may have been made slightly smaller in physical size, so that they've sort of got less information. It takes less, it doesn't take as long for the items to load and unload, because obviously when you get loading, that's when you get your tile loading stutter that we all will know and don't love in Train Sim Classic, where it's like, right, this tile is like this, so I've got to load in this, and this object, and that one's huge, so it's going to take me a while to load that, and it just takes forever. So they're working to reduce that. The main one, which apparently has been the problem for them, is the materials. So that's ground textures, so stuff like ballast, grass, concrete, rubber. Do you get rubber ground? I don't know. But yeah, all that kind of stuff they've apparently optimised to make the textures and the sort of the information that goes with them smaller, so that the game can load and unload faster than it ever has before. So hopefully this should make the route run better. And apparently they've tested it up to 325 kilometers an hour, and the route runs just fine. So hopefully that is true on all systems. They also mentioned something else about the glass on the ICE. I'll come back to this in a bit when it's more appropriate. But there's something interesting came out of that, is that there's no neutral section functionality on the route, which is interesting, because if you've ever played East Coastway or Long Island Railroad, you'll know that there are naturally neutral sections for them routes on the third rail. So if there's no shoes touching the third rail, the train actually goes dead for a bit and it winds down. Like I say, it's definitely present on East Coastway, and I'm sure I've noticed it on Long Island Railroad. So it's interesting that they have that technology, the neutral section overhead functionality in Train Sim Classic, but not the third rail, and yet they have the third rail in Train Sim World and not Train Sim 2020, and you know, I'm sure neutral section functionality will be added later, but it just seems a bit odd. It doesn't really sit right in my mind. So, next up, they talked about the safety systems that were included on the train. Firstly, Matt Pedalston seemed particularly excited to talk about LZB. Now, for the record, I am no expert whatsoever when it comes to German content. American, either, no, which obviously would have been apparent in the last video, in the last reaction. I'm no expert when it comes to foreign content, I'm afraid. So I can't sort of say anything for definite. I don't know how to use these safety systems. I don't know what they do necessarily, but I will try and discuss as best as I can from what they were saying. Apparently there's been some overhauls to some of the stuff, so I'll go through it. Regarding the LZB, as I started talking about before, apparently PZB, which is basically the same thing by the sound of things, only is limited to up to 160 kilometers an hour. So the 160 kilometer an hour limit is obviously not fast enough to be able to leave the 320 kilometer an hour ICEs to run properly. So they had to develop the LZB system, which allows it to run faster. Apparently the train looks sort of 14 kilometers ahead of itself to find out what the track information is up ahead. I'm guessing it works like ATO lines on the underground, where it sort of checks beacons and cables and stuff, and it works out, it gets sent messages as to what the signal's doing and stuff. So I'm guessing it works like that. The LZB system looks further ahead than the PZB system, which means it can go faster as it's got longer to react to the distance. Like I say, it looks at circuits ahead. Apparently there's a cable on the tracks that it gets the info from. It sounds like this has actually been represented in the route, so that'll be nice to actually see something like that. So I'll be looking out for that. Apparently if you pair LZB with AFB, which is basically a cruise control system, the train will self-drive on certain areas. So they mentioned that if you stick if you activate both the LZB and the AFB, stick the power in full pelt, I think the train will actually speed itself up and slow it down. So I don't think it just works as speed set. I've got a feeling it actually brakes where required as well. So I don't know if that includes at signals as well. It might stop for a red signal, or it might not. But that then raises the alternate question, which I can speak more about. Does that mean we'll ever get ATO systems? Can we have the DLR? Can we have the Central Line? Can we have the Victoria Line? Can we have CBTC for the subsurface lines? Using this sort of line of information, is this stuff that we can potentially see in the future? Because that would be good. Now, I know a lot of people are against it, ATO systems coming into trains here, and I totally understand. It's not exactly that fun just pressing 2 buttons and watching the train drive itself. But at the same time, I would absolutely love to have that option. Say you're on the Jubilee line, for example. To have the option to either let the train drive itself, or to actually sit down and drive it manually, and be able to choose between the two, is an excellent flexibility, I reckon. I can't wait to see if they do that in the future. That would be lovely. Anyway, back to the KÖLN-AACHEN route safety systems. Apparently PZB has had some slight tweaks and improvement. CIFA is more or less the same because of, but it's a simple system. And AFB holds speed apparently closer to the actual speed apparently before. Now, I've never used any of these safety systems, so I can't talk about them, but apparently it used to hold it a few miles an hour or kilometers an hour under the speed limit. Apparently it's actually better now, so it holds the speed limit properly. Somebody asked about if there will be tutorials for safety systems. Now this is one that I could really do with for these. AWS2, PWS, nah, don't need them. But for PZB, LZB, CIFA, all of that, yeah, I really need that because I've got no idea how it works. Apparently there's not going to be any tutorials yet. They're going to be worked on, they said. They want to work on them and introduce some tutorials because I really think they need to. But so far, nothing's going to happen with regards to tutorials about safety systems. They also mentioned some button mapping on AFB. Apparently, controller doesn't have proper button mapping for AFB systems and something like that. Apparently, that will be spoken about later when they talk about the game more. Again, I can't really sort of say anything on that, particularly because I don't know the details on that. We shall find out on that one when we find out. So, next they started talking about the trains. First question on the list that I'll answer, what's included in the route? So, included in the route, we have the BR406 ICE3M, as we know, and the Talent 2. Now, I know somebody in the comments, and I'll try and find the comment to post here, but somebody in my comment section mentioned the fact that there are different formations of Talent 2 units. Obviously, we had a 3-car in rapid transit. There are 4 cars, there are 5 cars, I think somebody said there are 2 cars as well. They're including only the 4-car variant in the route, but it would be nice to have an extra variant of it. So with regard to the Talent 2, somebody asked about how the modelling will change. Is it the exact same model as used on the rapid transit? Is it literally just that model retextured, or have they done work? And by the sound of things, it sounds like they've actually done quite a significant amount of work to the train. I was expecting just simply a reskin, and I know in the last one I said, yeah, it's nice that they're including a reskin of this train so we can see it in a new livery. But no, apparently there's done significantly more work than that. So they've added a 4th car. Apparently that's had to be modelled from scratch, so there are no cars on a Talent 2 that can just be sort of plugged and played. They're all slightly different. So they've had to entirely remodel this 4th car specifically for the train. Apparently the old model had low doors, and they've had to raise these for the longer distance runs that this train's going to do now. So the doors have been moved on the model, which basically means that the exterior model has had to be remodeled. Apparently there's also 2 ramps that the Talent 2 has. And these can be chosen manually. So there's apparently going to be a button in the cab, and you pull into a station, you press a button for the ramp you want, and then the ramp will come out as the door opens. and allow people to get up and down. So I'm guessing it's different platform heights. If you've got a platform that's the same height as the train, you'll probably get a shorter ramp come out than if you've got one that's lower than the train, in which it will probably come out and drop down and all that. Apparently there's also been a seating layout change. There's been some retexturing in the train. Apparently some undercarriage pistons have been animated. So I'm wondering if maybe these are the bogie dampers, maybe? They could be the anti-roll bars and the dampers that they've done to make them move as it goes around the corners and stuff. There's been safety system changes, which we've already discussed the safety system, so I won't go too far into that. Unit numbers are now going to spawn in a better way, so you're going to get more reliable numbering of a unit, and they've added some checksum information to it. And finally, they've added destination screens, which they showed a nice video of scrolling destination screens, which shall be on the screen right now. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with these. These are a good step in the right direction. Apparently the text is generated dynamically, so before they would have a set texture. They mentioned this later on, but before they'd have a set texture for the destination. So basically on the 101, for example, you've got, I can't remember what the destinations are, but you've got Leeds and Manchester and Huddersfield. They were set destinations that were a texture. Apparently with the 377, they then introduced a more advanced destination system where you'd basically be like how numbers work in the old train sim. If anybody's not aware, you basically have numbers set up in digits. So you've got a texture for the 0, a texture for the 1, a texture for the 2, the 3, the 4, and so on. Basically, they've created a texture for every single letter of the alphabet, and when it's called upon, they will have T implemented, and then E, and then X, and then T sort of thing for the word text. Or Brighton, you'll get B and R, and it will come together. So you can basically, you don't need to create an entire new texture just to have a different destination. They can basically just type a new destination into the train, click add, and then it comes on the train pretty much. So they don't have to do all that texture work, which is good. I think this is how this list has been generated, and I'm sure the video has probably run out by now, so I'm going to hurry up. The question I want to know, though, is, as you can see, and obviously I'll show the video of the ICE as well doing the same thing. As you can see on the video, it scrolls through the stations. Is that station list going to go down as you stop at stations? Because obviously if you stop somewhere, that name then would not appear on the destination display because you've stopped there, and nobody needs to know that that train stops there because, you know, it's already happened. It's in the past. It's pointless to know, sort of thing. If you're getting on a train, you don't need to worry where it stopped. You just need to know where it's stopping. So is that list going to go down as you stop at stations dynamically, or is it going to be set? So for the whole route, you're going to have the same list of destinations. Also, if you look inside the train, you can see that the PIS system on the train is actually displaying. And they stated clearly before that this would not be the case. They said that this system will not work. And I can see it working. So is it dynamic, or is it just a generic piece of text with just the destination, for example? I don't know. We shall find that one out soon. Also, with regards to the destination displays, they said that it technically could be retrofitted to older trains, but they probably won't do that. And I get that. They probably won't, actually. Let's be perfectly honest. That's not going to happen. We're not going to see a 377 with scrolling destinations anytime soon. They'll probably have to make a new 377. Say they were going to make the Brighton Main Line. That 377 probably will have scrolling destinations. But for the existing East Coastway one, nah, it probably won't have scrolling destinations. But for future content, apparently it's possible. This also leads me on to another question that was answered. Well, a long time ago, and they outright denied it. Platform information. If we've got information that scrolls on the train that's dynamic, does that mean that one day we could end up with scrolling platform information? Train announcements, platform announcements. You know, because if they've done that, I can't imagine it being all that much worse off to add the script for all these extra announcements and extra bits. Just to make the world feel more alive. Like, for example, the Bakerloo line, you know, announcements are an integral part of the London Underground. They're kind of needed. So, could we ever see that in the future? The Talent 2 has also had some new sounds apparently recorded for it. Apparently the old ones in Rapid Transit were artificially synthesized, so they were basically created with a computer to make it sound close to the real thing. But after on another sort of recording run for a different train, they actually got the opportunity to re-record a Talent 2. So it's now going to have unique sounds from an actual Talent 2, which is good. I mean, I'm sure there'll be DTG level sound effects, but you know, apparently they've had help from a third-party developer though, so that should be nice. Apparently they've also had help on the ICE sounds from the same third-party developer. They just said these sounds would be great, so, or amazing, or whatever it was. So we don't know what they're actually going to sound like, but we'll find out, I guess, when we actually see some gameplay footage. So, going across to the ICE, they mentioned that there are no double ICE services in service mode, but the scenarios will include them. Another thing with regards to the ICE, apparently the window glass can be made opaque to stop people looking through. So basically, if you don't know, I've mentioned this several times, but the ICE 3 has a cab which you can see into from the passenger view. And then you can see what the driver's doing and look out the window. The window can also be made opaque in real life by a button on the cab, on the dashboard. Apparently this button has been implemented so that the screen can be made blank if you desire it to be. So somebody mentioned motion blur. Motion blur on the wheels, specifically, and that hasn't been fixed. Apparently motion blur works in straight lines, and as wheels go round and round, it doesn't really... The motion blur's basically got no idea what it's supposed to be doing, which is why you get the sort of the spikes come off a motion blur wheel, because it doesn't really know what it's doing. It's trying to make the data go in straight lines, and it just doesn't really know what it's doing. So apparently there's a way to turn wheel motion blur off. Now, I don't think this is the case. I think they meant to say that there's actually a way to turn motion blur off as a whole. Which, yes, it's true. Apparently you can't do that on Xbox for some reason, because of the menu isn't in the game or something. I don't really understand, but sure, whatever. I don't play the Xbox, for the record. So, scenarios and timetable. I can probably get through this section relatively quickly, I reckon. So, the ICE and Talent 2 are obviously going to be used for scenarios, for services in the base of the route. There are going to be a total of 49 services from the January timetable along the KÖLN-AACHEN route. To me, across the 24-hour period, that sounds completely pathetic. That sounds pathetic. Honestly, 49 scenarios isn't a lot. Services. There are going to be 5 scenarios, which sounds about right for DCG, let's be honest. But 49 services doesn't sound right. However, there's a big however. If you got the main specific on, and I apologise if I'm saying that wrong, but I have no idea when it comes to German routes, like I've said before, you get 110 services in total. So that's the 49 plus whatever it is to make the 110, or, you know, take the 110, or take the 49 from the 110 to give you the answer. I can't be bothered to work it out. So, as they say in the advert, you do the math. But yeah, there's going to be 110 services if you got the main specific on, including regional express services on the R1 route and freight services. Additionally, if you got the Rhino Roston, I think they said, again, apologise if that's something I'm just making up, but if you've got that route, you're going to have 161 services, including freight and S-Bahn services. So there's a lot of different things that will go on. And I know I got a comment in my last video reacting to the trailer that mentioned the fact that I'd missed these other trains. They were in the trailer. DGG confirmed they were in the trailer, and they put them in there as an Easter egg. I didn't see them. Like I said, I have no idea when it comes to German content, so I apologise if I didn't pick up on these extra trains that were in the service that were in the trailer. But they're there. Go and have another look and see what you can see in that trailer. And like I say, there's more services coming in the future. Back to the base of the route now. The ICE 3 will only be on a KÖLN-AACHEN services with no stops in between. Obviously the Talent 2 is going to have stopping services and stuff, so you're going to have a bit more to do. There will be depot services as well. There'll be freight services coming later, as I've already said. And obviously with the scenario planner, you can make your own stuff. And speaking about the scenario planner, that leads on to the next section of this reaction video. So, the scenario planner, as we've already mentioned before, this is a big thing. Preserve collection will now work with Train Sim World 2, which is a big thing, again, because you can use all your old content from Train Sim World 2 in the new collection, which is also key because you can use all your old content on the KÖLN-AACHEN route. You can use all your old content. So, again, there's going to be some services which we've already talked about that are going to be in by default. So, I can't wait for that. It almost makes me want to buy all the other German content just so I get the extra services on this route. Despite the fact I'll probably never drive it. But it's cool. I like it. I was talking about all these extra services before. And now they're actually doing it. And, you know, it's good. It's good. It's definitely the right way to go. But yeah, with regards to the Preserve collection, you can obviously put your old trains on your new routes, and your new trains on your old routes, and your old trains on your old routes, and, you know, mix it up as much as you like, pretty much. With regards to setting up a scenario, they actually showed a video of the scenario planner, and I shall sort of put this video on in the background. So, length of train, apparently it must fit on a marker. Each marker has its own distance of how long it is, and the trains also have a distance of how long they are. And the train must fit on the marker in order to be able to create the scenario. It can cause issues if the train is longer and it overhangs on buffers and points and all that. So that's why they've done that. Which on a technical level, it makes a lot of sense, really. Somebody asked, can you do sort of one service and then you take the service back and you go back and forth a few times? No. We've already said this before, but it's an end-to-end scenario. There's nothing more that people can do. The paths are preset by TGG, so there's going to be 7 or 8 routes that are included in the KÖLN-AACHEN route, apparently, and they'll include freight pathways, high-speed pathways, S-Bahn services, R1 services, I think it said RE1, I think it said RE9 or something as well, and there's a load of services that you can do. Like I said, there's specific paths, they've got specific platforms, which you can go into and you can choose from. Something interesting that they did say, though, is that along these set pathway, you can actually start and stop wherever you like. So if, say, you can set up a scenario where half the line is blocked, for example, because there's been an accident or engineering works or something like that, you can actually do that. You can say, right, I want to take my train on this route, but I want it to start halfway down the route because the other half of the route is blocked by engineering works, for example. So you can actually do that. So on the Bakerloo line, for example, let's say, I don't know, for some reason you feel like starting at Wembley Central, you can do that. You can do that, and then you can have all the stops all the way into London or out or whatever. You know, you can start wherever you like. Or I'm trying to think of where there's a crossover. I think Waterloo might have a crossover. I got a feeling it might. So you could sort of go from Waterloo and come back. So, you know, you could do some unique services. I can't remember exactly where they all are now. There could be one in Embankment. Piccadilly Circus possibly as well. I can't remember. But, you know, you can do stuff with it. Again, we've already said this before, but there will be no static AI which you can add to timetable. You could technically use a train that's timetabled to leave after a long time in order to make it a static AI, but officially there's no static AI. So you can't fill your yards up with wagons, for example. But apparently, depending on sort of how requested the feature is, they might look at that in the future. That's something they've got planned. Somebody then asked, is there a limit to the amount of scenarios you can have per route? The limit is 30. You can have up to 30 scenarios per route. So once you've got that, you'll then obviously have to start making temporary folders and splitting up the difference and keeping scenarios safe when you're not using them, sort of thing. Only have the ones you want in the game when you want them, sort of thing. Which is a bit of a problem, in a way. Especially the fact, and I've already mentioned the fact that the Xbox was a bad move, and the PlayStation. The consoles were a bad move in a way for the game, in my opinion, being a PC player, because it's holding back the PC game. Obviously, for console players, it's an excellent thing. But the 30 limit is due to consoles not being able to take up... Apparently, you're not allowed to use all of the space on the console just for one game, which, I mean, is fair enough. Capitalism! But nonetheless... So, yeah, we're restricted to 30 currently. Apparently, depending on what's needed, they might increase or decrease that at a later date. But for now, you can only have 30. So, then they went on to show a video of the scenario planner. And I shall talk about the video in sort of while it's playing in the background. And I'll chop up the video because it was quite a long video. And there was quite a lot of sort of moving around and stuff. But basically, it looks like you set the name of your scenario. Set your start marker on your scenario. So the platform that you want to select. Once you selected that platform, it will show you which routes you can do. You set the start of the route. You set the end of the route. You set the train. You set if it's a player train or a passenger train if it's an AI passenger train. If it's a freight train and you set a stop marker, the train will just stop, not do anything, and then it will go on again, sort of thing. If you set it as a passenger, it will stop, open the doors, and go again. So if you forget to select passenger, AI, the train won't actually open the doors. It will just stop and then go again. So after that, they then sort of loaded up the game, and they showed off the new HUD. It wasn't sort of a, we're going to show you the HUD. It was just a case of, oh, the HUD's here. You might as well have a look at it, sort of thing. So there's the HUD. It looks interesting. It looks kind of more like a control panel. To be honest, I'm not really going to take much from the HUD until I've actually seen it in action. Because we can't really tell what everything is and why it's there. So, for me personally, I'm not going to talk much about the HUD yet. I'm going to let it do its thing. Also the same with the information screens. You can see it's got all the information that you need about your train. Again, I'm not going to really analyse these until later on, because I want to know sort of how they work more, I think, first, before I feel like I can actually talk about them. Apparently you can edit a scenario later as well if you want to. So then, they talked about off-the-rails mode, and this is sort of the screenshots I showed in the last reaction video. Trains can go anywhere. It's basically that tick box that I was talking about. Trains will be able to go anywhere on any route and do anything if you put them on the routes. And it's a really cool feature, and I can't wait to see it. And there's a quick video, and I'm going to show you clips of this video because I won't show you the entire video. But there's some nice sort of imagery of the Bakerloo line for you to have a look at. So obviously they've put one of the big American locos down the tunnel at Elephant and Castle, and it's completely unrealistic, but, you know, like I was saying, it's just fun. You know, why should we not be able to do this? It's our game, we can do what we like. Let's talk about some of the textures and stuff, very, very quickly. You'll notice that the walls look significantly dirtier than they have done in the past. The platforms look good. The lighting, somebody else noted, is also quite a lot dimmer than it used to be on some of the stations. And this one just generally looks overall nicer. You'll obviously see the train starting to pull away here. If you notice the name boards at the side, one thing I've noticed about them is that they don't seem to have gaps in between some of the letters, so it's not split into sections, which is a bit odd. So, but yeah, as you can see, smack straight into the wall, and we've got the junction. So yeah, it's all modelled. When he turns on the headlight in a sec, because he obviously forgot to turn on the headlight. Now, you'll notice that you can see all the tunnel rings. Now, I was hoping the tunnel rings might have been a bit deeper than they were, because this is the first really image we've seen inside the cab. Like I say, I was hoping the tunnel rings would be significantly deeper than they are there. And I don't know about them on the sidewall there, but, you know, sure, whatever, we'll go with it. I can't see any cable trunking actually looking at that. I love how he gets stuck when he tries to go up the cab though. That's quite funny. He gets stuck by the wall. So yeah, pulling into Lambeth North. Again, the lighting's a lot nicer than we have seen in the past. This station looks a bit too clean still, but it's got a nice feel to it. It definitely feels more like the underground. It's starting to feel slightly dimmer and darker and nicer. That way outside I noticed was a bit pixelated from a distance. But other than that, it looks really good. Obviously the next stream will be where we talk about the Bakerloo line, however. So I'll leave it till then. As stated before, you'll have to enable this option in order to be able to use it. You know, you're not just going to jump in the game. If you want to create a realistic scenario, you're not just going to get hammered with every single train under the sun. You have to enable you have to enable the off-the-rails mode in order to be able to see all the trains that you've got in your library. The final question of the night was, can I share my scenarios? The answer to that question is no. However, it also isn't a no. They stated that there is no official way to share scenarios. However, they know the community too well, and they know that it will not take people long, and I said this before, it will not take people long to find the files. People will find the files, they will extract the files from the game, and I guarantee you, in a little while, there will be a section on AlanThompsonSimulation.com dedicated to downloading Train Sim World 2 scenarios. I guarantee it. 100%. So people will get the files, people will share them, and that's great. The question that leads on from that is, can the liveries be shared? Because that would be good. The other question, which I mentioned in my last video, is if the liveries sort of have files and you could sort of share them in the same way, does that mean you could technically create a livery, extract it, reskin it in an external Photoshop program, and then put it back in the game? Because if you can, that would be pretty cool. Because then you could make a reskin without actually having to actively reskin something. You replace. Because before, if anybody's ever used a reskin, it basically replaces every single train in that livery, because there's no way to add content to Train Sim. You can only replace content. But if you add the content via a unique livery in-game, can you then extract that livery and edit it outside? That's a question I want to know. I reckon that's possible. I would say that's possible. But with regards to the scenarios, again, they can be shared if you're that way inclined. Anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video today. I apologise that I don't know much about the German routes, but I tried my best. If anybody's got any other opinions to say, then please let me know, because I'll be more than happy to read through them and reply to them. Obviously, next time we'll be discussing the Bakerloo line, most likely, unless we get any mini articles in the meantime. But most likely next time it will be the Bakerloo line, and I'll actually know what I'm talking about. So yes, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.